Hello, my name is Danielle Thompson, and I am the Education and Wildlife Specialist for the Brown County Soil and Water Conservation District. It is a pleasure to be a part of the All About Bats video series. We appreciate bats for the amazing adaptations they have, as well as the many services they provide to us. However, sometimes bats can make themselves comfortable in our own homes. As much as I love bats and appreciate them, there are some valid reasons for taking care when sharing a space with them. In today's video, we will cover the following. How do I even know if there are bats in my house or in my church or in my office? Why would I want to remove the bats from the building? Which laws do I have to follow if I am going to remove the bats? How do I go about removing bats from a building? And can I still help the bats while getting them out of the building? Let's get started.
In this section, we will focus on bats roosting in a building. Later, we will discuss what to do if you find a single bat inside your home. Seeing bats outside of your home does not mean that you have them in your building. Bats will come close to swimming pools or building lights in search of water and insects. So, what signs tell us that bats are roosting in a building? If you are seeing bats outside at dusk or dawn, observe where they are flying. Do you see them entering your building? Bats most commonly roost in high places such as attics, but may use porches, barns, shutters, carports, or other locations. Bats use very narrow cracks to gain access to a building. Something as narrow as 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch can allow a bat to squeeze through. Another measurement to keep in mind is a hole the size of a dime. These gaps can allow bats access. Where bats are using these entry points, you may see staining or rub marks on the surrounding surface of the wall, bricks, or fascia. This is from the natural oils of the fur being rubbed repeatedly against the surface by many bats over time. If bats are using the building, you may hear noises or scratching coming from the wall, ceiling, or chimney. However, keep in mind there are other animals that could also be the culprit, such as mice, squirrels, or raccoons. If you have identified where a possible entrance is to the building, check the outside ground for droppings. At first glance, they may look similar to a small rodent's, but because our Ohio bats are insectivorous, the guano will have shiny bits of undigested insects. And when all else fails, check the attic or the suspected space. During the daytime, enter the space and use a flashlight to scan around. Make sure to wear a mask to avoid inhaling dust or mold that may be present. For some people, just knowing that bats are in their space is enough reason for them to be removed. Others of us may not be as quick to evict these mammals. However, there are a few reasons to discourage bats from sharing your home or building. If bats can roost in a building where their needs are met, the population will likely expand over time. While this is wonderful in some regards, it does potentially lead to additional conflicts in the future. Bat guano or excrement can have a very unpleasant odor as it decomposes. With more bats roosting over a longer period of time, the smell in the attic and walls may become quite strong. It might also attract some types of arthropods, such as mites. There is also a potential for some disease exposure. Rabies is the most notable disease associated with bats. While a small percentage of bats may be infected, caution must be taken when being in proximity to bats. Transmission of rabies would take place through a bite from an infected animal. Bats have very small teeth, and you may not even see that you have been bitten. Histoplasmosis is a disease caused by mold. This fungus is most prevalent in high nitrogen soils, often associated with bat guano or bird feces. Across the United States, the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys have the highest likelihood of exposure to the fungus. This fungus is found not only in the soil, but can also be within buildings where large quantities of guano have accumulated. First, it is important to check your state's specific guidelines for bat exclusion laws. In Ohio, every species of bat is protected. It is unlawful to perform an exclusion between May 16th through July 31st, where there are 15 or more bats in a structure. This restriction is in place to protect female bats and pups during the maternity period. Mothers leave their pups at the roost when they go to feed in the evening. Performing an exclusion during that time period would separate moms from pups. This is detrimental to the bat population, but would also lead to dead pups inside your building. In special circumstances where human safety is at imminent risk, the Chief of the Ohio Division of Wildlife may grant authorization to conduct exclusion activities during the restricted time frame. However, there is an application and guidelines that must be followed. These can be found on the Ohio Division of Wildlife website. So we will start with the simplest scenario. I have found one bat inside my home, office, school, etc. Now what? The most important thing to remember whenever you are working with bats is do not touch a bat with your bare hands. So, in this situation, the first thing that you would do is close the interior doors leading to the rest of the building. This will prevent the bat from gaining access to other parts of the building. Next, you should open windows, you may have to remove the screens, and open any exterior doors. Next, turn lights off in the room. Get it dark or dusky in the room if at all possible. And then finally, wait. When the bat discovers an exit, it will leave on its own. You may have to wait until dusk for the bat to be a little more active, but this is the easiest solution. However, if the bat simply hangs out on the wall or floor, you can use the following method for removing the bat. This video is from the Minnesota Department of Health and does an excellent job of explaining the process. Just keep in mind as you watch that if you have questions, contact an Ohio certified rehabilitator or your local health department.
Now, I know it can be frightening to have a bat in your home, but they're also a really important part of our environment. Hi, my name's Carrie Klum, and I'm an epidemiologist and the Animal Rabies Surveillance Coordinator at the Minnesota Department of Health. Part of my job is talking to people every day about their risk of rabies from animals, including bats. We are at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Roseville, Minnesota to demonstrate how to safely capture a bat. The most important piece of equipment is a solid and clean container, like a deli-sized Tupperware container or a shoebox. You should add some breathing holes, but keep them quite small, less than 1/8 of an inch, so the bat can't squeeze out. If you do use a box, tape any holes inside and outside and make sure all the sides are taped. You should also wear winter or leather work gloves to protect your hands. Bats can bite through cloth, like gardening gloves, towels, or sheets. Don't use items like tennis rackets, shoes, or baseball bats to smash the bat. If the bat is flying, make sure someone is watching it at all times. Don't try to knock it out of the air or try to catch it while flying. Catching a bat in a way that keeps it alive is best for testing and best for the animal. Once the bat lands on a surface, place the hard-sided container over the bat and slide the lid between the bat and the surface. Make sure the entire bat is in the box before securing the lid. If you've seen a bat in the house and now you can't locate it, you might be able to find it by listening for the sounds a bat makes. Sometimes bats end up in shoes, jackets, or other items like a purse. You may find a bat in one of these objects when you go to put the item on. If this happens to you, just put the entire item into a large container like a storage bin. If you can't find a bin, a garbage bag will work in a pinch. Now you've safely captured a bat in a container. What should you do next? If the bat seems injured or unhealthy or it's winter time, please call the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center at 651-486-9453 and they will help you figure out where to take the bat. If it's summer and the bat is uninjured and you know that no one was exposed to the bat and no one was found sleeping in a room where the bat was found, it's okay to release it outside. However, if you know that someone did have physical contact with the bat, or someone was asleep and woke up to the bat in their room, or you had a very young child or a vulnerable adult that couldn't reliably tell you what happened, then we do want you to test the bat for rabies. And we'd like you to call us at the Minnesota Department of Health at 651-201-5414. If you can't reach the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center or the Minnesota Department of Health, please keep the bat in the container and place it in a dark, quiet, warm area and try calling us again in the morning. We'd be happy to help you.
If you have a colony of bats roosting in a building, methods can be taken to permanently exclude the bats from the space. This process is tedious and requires multiple days of follow-up. You have two options for excluding bats from a building. The first option is to seek the services of a licensed nuisance wild animal control operator that has experience with bat exclusion. The other option is to bat-proof your home yourself. If you elect to do the work yourself, remember to avoid May 16th through July 31st, the maternity period for Ohio bats. You also do not want to exclude bats in winter. To have the best chance at success, you will need to do the following. Start, if you have not already done so, by sealing indoor openings through which bats might gain access to living quarters. Seal gaps of 1/4 inch by 1.5 inches, or any openings the size of a dime. Next, Identify the exterior entry and exit points. You may seal the minor entry and exit points, but it is important that the primary points of entry be open, so you may install one-way doors. This will prevent bats from re-entering the building as long as the other areas have been properly sealed. Following the installation of the one-way doors, you will need to check the space during daylight hours for the presence of bats. While you are checking for their presence, you may also see some openings that were missed in your previous sealing of the space. Leave the one-way doors in place for several days. Continue to check for the presence of bats. When you believe that you have excluded the bats, conduct an evening bat watch around the building at dusk. Make sure no bats are exiting the space. Once all of the bats are gone, you may remove the one-way doors and permanently seal the holes. If you need to exclude bats from a building, there are two things you can do to support the bat population outside of your home. The first item is to encourage or create alternative roosting sites. A natural roost site for bats is often dead trees. If you have dead trees on your property that can safely remain in place, please leave those. This is good for bats, but it is also valuable to a wide variety of other wildlife species. If you know in advance that you are going to be doing a bat exclusion, place one or two bat boxes outside a few months beforehand. Bats may not use these while their existing roost is available, but they may be more attracted to the boxes if they are not brand new when they are evicted from your building. The other thing that you can do is to encourage insect diversity on your property. A great place to start is one of the videos in our All About Bats series called Bat Gardens. This will give you great information about plants that encourage insects, which then will benefit our bat population. And remember, when possible, limit the use of pesticides to boost the insects. Bats are an intriguing and fascinating animal. When our habitats coincide too closely, it is important to follow local laws to protect bat populations, to ensure humane treatment for the bats, and to protect the human occupants too. If you have questions or concerns about bats in your home or building, contact a licensed nuisance animal control operator, your local Division of Wildlife, or reach out to a certified rehabilitator. Thank you for watching.